During World War II, the Allied forces knew that they needed to keep the Germans guessing about their next move. One of the most successful attempts to deceive the enemy was Operation Fortitude, which was designed to mislead the Germans about the location of the D-Day landings. The operation involved a complex web of deception, including the use of fake radio transmissions, false intelligence reports, and even an elaborate scheme involving a dead body carrying false information. But perhaps the most ingenious element of Operation Fortitude was the use of inflatable tanks. The Allied forces created a variety of inflatable tanks, planes, and other vehicles that looked incredibly realistic from a distance. The tanks were made of lightweight materials and could be inflated in just a few minutes. Once inflated, they looked just like real tanks, complete with turrets, gun barrels, and even tracks. The goal was to convince the Germans that the Allied forces had a much larger army than they actually did. The inflatable tanks were deployed in several locations, including in southern England, where they were visible to German reconnaissance planes flying overhead. The tanks were placed in strategic locations, making it seem as if the Allied forces were preparing to launch an attack in the Pas-de-Calais region of France, which was a logical target for the Germans. On the day of the D-Day landings, the Germans were still convinced that the attack was coming in the Pas-de-Calais region. The Germans had positioned a large number of troops and tanks in the area, waiting for the Allied forces to arrive. However, the real invasion was happening in Normandy, more than 150 miles away. The Germans did eventually discover that the tanks were not real, but by then it was too late. The Allied forces had already landed in Normandy and were making significant progress. The use of inflatable tanks had bought the Allied forces crucial time and had helped to divert the attention of the Germans away from the actual target. The Germans were initially taken in by the inflatable tanks, but as the war progressed, they became more suspicious. The Germans eventually developed ways of spotting the fake tanks, such as looking for telltale signs like shadows or reflections that would not be present on a real tank. However, by the time the Germans had figured out how to spot the fake tanks, the Allied forces had moved on to other deception techniques. Overall, Operation Fortitude was a crucial element of the Allied war effort. The use of inflatable tanks and other deception techniques helped to mislead the Germans and gave the Allied forces a significant advantage. Without Operation Fortitude, the D-Day landings may not have been as successful as they were. In conclusion, the use of inflatable tanks was just one element of the larger narrative of deception during World War II. Operation Fortitude was a remarkable achievement, and the success of the operation demonstrates just how effective military deception can be. The inflatable tanks may seem like a humorous footnote in the history of the war, but they played a critical role in helping the Allies to achieve victory.